Peace. We have a good time to build here. I'm gonna be here until 8 o'clock, so I'm gonna be here approximately 75 minutes. God power, right? Um, Let me know where you're at. Let me know what you would like to know. Again, I'm catching up on everything. So um, my priority now, like so people know the order, is all the letters that I get from jail, the prisons, and then when I finish those, making sure I have the emails done. Um, and then the next priority after that is completing the next plus lesson that I have, which is basically on the 1 to 10. Okay, I think that'll be very useful. Kind of like uh, not kind of really like a study sheet, like I did the 1 to 36. If you've seen the 1 to 36, I worked that the same way. So um, all right. So uh, every single week, every single week has been marred by negativity. Um, I'll take any question that anyone has, but I'm not really harping on any of that because it's really not important anymore. Um, I've already said my piece about things. Um, Recently, you may have seen me on Uncle Nick's show. Um, let me see the name of his show because I forget sometimes. Yeah, his Word the Street with Uncle Nick. Um, it was Uncle Nick who reached out to me. It wasn't the other way around. He reached out to me so that way I could build on it, and I thought it was a great mix because I could seriously speak on what I had to say, but at the same time, um, Uncle Nick shared in a very comical manner his thoughts on the whole thing. Um, anyway, look, I didn't get to look at all the entire Parliament. I missed the last Parliament in February, the February Parliament. So I don't know exactly what was said to uh, regarding him and the situation. I know that I've said what I had to say in the situation, um, and I'm going to reiterate this to anyone that has the knowledge of self. Um, to say that you're going to exile me is to speak violently against me. It's to speak ignorance of what's going on in the school. It's to speak ignorance about what I have brought to this nation um, these last years and in this century. Um, and if you look at that video, what I found most interesting is that the people that had the disagreements, I went through a whole back and forth with somebody that didn't articulate themselves well and really thought that I was saying that mathematics starts at zero. And he's trying to tell me that, well, the binary system starts at zero and you have that, but you don't have the other thing. And I'm like, did you even listen to what I said? Because I said that it was Jamar who says that, not me. And that I disagree with that 1,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000,000, 1,250,000,000,000%. So again, it's people that think that they're 5%ers or not doing the knowledge, not doing the knowledge. Um, I found it interesting. The other situation was people telling me I was only been here for this amount of time, as if this is a small amount of time. It's not, to everyone that's learning this knowledge, it's not about the amount of time that you're in anything. It's how well you build in that select amount of time. Um, and I have, I had accolades in this nation. I had published newspapers already by the time in less than 5 years being in the nation. So I've always given things to this nation because I want to, not because I have to, not because I was demanded to. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I was able to do. So, said person of that, I was a said person of that ability, and so I ably did it. But just reiterating that because I really don't want to harp on anything negative. But I want to say that looking back on this idea of, let's say, Jamar saying the wrong thing about math starts at zero, it makes it more egregious is that all students, when they're really learning, they say things that are disagreeable to the knowledge. And I'll give you an example. I'll give all the examples. I give the examples that are the most blaring the last couple of years. Besides Lord Jamal, you have Saladin. Saladin thinking that it was a good idea or the right idea that only he was able to do, and uh, copyright the flag. I had a long day with the kids today. A good one, but a long day. Um, but when you have ideas that, first of all, if you're smart enough to know that your ideas counter or disagree with something, that is good as a student. That's very good. The next thing that you should do is take it to your enlightener, one of the elders, someone that knows this better, and then speak on it. These are things to be spoken on. This is what makes the arrogance. You cannot be in this nation for over 20, 20 plus years or be affiliated with it, because I think for people like Jamal, it's better said affiliated. So Saladin in it, for sure, no matter how disagreeable I found what he did. Um, but take your idea to the elder. Like I bring up the Saladin because I had a conversation outside, right outside of a law school. One of the many that I had over the years as we built and we worked and gave all we had to the school with the God P.E.A.C.E. Allah. Remembered, remembered in perfection. Peace to the God. And what a great God. Great man. And I, I demand of myself not to forget the last conversations we had. People took a picture of us across the street from the school one time, talking in front of the school, and we had definitely different body types. And I'm a short 5'4" stature, light featherweight, and Siakil is like 6'5", 300, high 280s, like, and talking about books, and our love for books, and a lot of different books, we were talking about how we read. We got into a thing about how we read, and that kind of acumen that we do with that. But that was one of the last conversations we had. But we had a conversation one time in front of the school because at that time, though, um, yeah, people try to be slick and sell the flags, sell the lessons, things like that. And me and some other guys, we had a conversation where, we took the flags, we took these. They were grafted too. They look crazy grafted, but so it wasn't like we were keeping them. They look crazy. Like, so it was like basically garbage once we took it. But when we took it, I was telling them about it, and we exiled these people off the block and stuff, and talking about it with Siakil, and they got into this idea like, how do we stop people from using this stuff? Because Siakil, with him, we question everything. Like, is it a good idea to write a law school in Mecca? Should we have this? Like, these are things that, for us though, it wasn't our purview to say we have to take that down and this and that. That would be disrespectful. We don't know the history, or we're disrespecting the history because we do know at that age we did know, and that that amount that we knew. We know it's 120 for years, all that. But we always questioned everything. But we didn't do act on things that we knew were not going to not going to be accepted, because we knew that it deserved to hear the counters, the disagreements to it. And we talk about the flag, and we're talking about, like, listen, I think it was CIQ proposed, like, we got to do something. Maybe copyright this thing or something like that. You know, and I think it was one of the elders that, I think it was Amin, and he told us, like, with the main thing that really got us, though, that really ended us, especially me being from a very revolutionary, radical background, was once he said, why would we teach something that is opposed to all society? I'm paraphrasing here because he didn't use all these words this way. Um, why would we get their help to defend something that they don't want to defend, and that they don't bear witness to, and signifies in many respects their end to their rule? That was enough for me, to put ourselves in an awkward position where they might have some say about how it gets used, how it gets defended, all these kind of things. Um, and there was more to the conversation, but over all the years, that's all I remember. That was good enough for me. I was good. I felt like, yo, we should go out there and defend it. We put such a name on it. We put such a name on it. This is the thing. Like, my name is Sunez. Like, if you talk about my name, I'm gonna defend my name. I'm gonna give you the works. I'm gonna give you the resume. I'm gonna show and prove, and I have to. I would defend my name in all costs, though. Not necessarily by making you bear witness, but showing and proving my name. I'm willing to show and prove my name. What I have to share, my abilities, what is useful for the youth, etc., etc. Right? I say all that, though, to say that the ego, to think that you know how supreme mathematics starts, or disagree, that was something for you to take to older gods and then discuss it. Not because, forget about, let's say if you have your ego and you were like, I'll teach it the way I want and stuff, right? It's if you really were a scientist, you want to hear all the counters to your thoughts. This is not art. Sometimes when I write poetry and when I write my books, I don't even let people edit it. You read my books, you're gonna find some typos and things like that, but you're not gonna see a bastardization of the techniques that I tried to share on the page. This is how I do it. I don't want anyone doing that. When I make songs, Piece of Guy for your mind, what cute. There are times when I'll share it with King Kamal and I'll be like, is this good? I'm not sure if I could do better. I'm not. But then there are other times now, as I'm more comfortable with it, I'm like, it came out right, in the pocket, the way I wanted to sound, the voices right, etc., etc., right? Because all of that, right? the classroom, the classroom is about a student pitching their insights that are disagreeable. And this is why when I give out supreme mathematics, though, I actually want naysayers. I want, why isn't this here? Why is this here? You know what I mean? And I don't want me speaking out against certain things to think that I disagree with the students having disagreements. It's just a way to disagree, show and prove it to everyone before you go mouthing off. That's detrimental to everyone. Program by society. No disrespect to you, Lord, but this has been the focus for Multiple Thursday builds. Let's focus F and let's go over the math today. Some plus degrees. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I wanted to give one last worth note about the student perspective. The student perspective should always be challenging. In the classroom, you need to consider the classroom, whether you're in it, and especially the ones that you create. The classroom cipher, it doesn't matter where you're teaching. You know what I mean? I want the classroom cipher to be one of disagreement, to be one of challenging thoughts and ideas, and it should be a place of experimentation where you have your ideas about things and certain things. I remember the first thing that I ever disagreed with 1 to 10, because I didn't disagree with anything in supreme math and alphabet. For some reason, everything made sense to me, and there was nothing that I could feel in my mind to counter any of those um, degrees or letters. I agreed with all of them. I didn't have any disagreements with them. But program by Saudi, we certainly have moved on because. Um, but I'm going to tell you this though, it has taken these many Thursdays because I've been disrespected. People have threatened my life. Um, People that I know have threatened my life. So it's been something I've had to take seriously. You know what I mean? And I do. I had to take it seriously. Okay. So this is why I had to spend these weeks and these builds. Um, I am devising a 1 to 10 build. What are the things that you fragment? What are the things that you study? How should you focus? Some literature that's great to begin with that I find to be necessary. We're going there. It's going to be a 1 to 10 plus lesson, but it's like my 1 to 36. All the sets are going to be designed like um, study sheets. Study sheets. When I finally get to the 1 to 40 to doing the study sheets, I'm going to break that down in 2 parts. Um, so I could share it faster, and so that you could deal with less information to deal with it one shot. Though, but those are forthcoming. Um, all right. So I'm going to open up one of these plus lessons. I know that there are some. Let me know. I would like more of a vote if people feel like it's time. If you don't mind, I'm going to send you something that we're building on. I got some ideas that I think will really add on um, to what you're doing. Um, but I want to know if people are interested. Something I have to amend as well because you learn more and you have to update. But the health protocol. If people want me to go through the health protocol, let me know in the chat and I will go through it. I'll review it and I'll update it for next week. And then I could also email the updated one. Just some little updates, some more particular nutrients. Many things have stayed the same. A lot of the reasoning has stayed the same. So, All right, let's see. This is a plus lesson that since I started talking about understanding, developing questions that challenge. It's not opening. What's going on here? This is a build called the. This is an understanding plus lesson. Doesn't That's the name of it? Having trouble opening it though, but. All right. So anyone that has any builds, I haven't seen any builds on the day's math in here in a long time. You know, right? Wisdom, God, all being born to born, right? Right? The way of God continues to born things. The way of God is always attached. The way of God is always moving. We're always in a way. There was always a way to us. There was always a wisdom by which we are what we are. That means that every moment that you're out there, something is being born, something is being completed. But what is the details, right? Can you target this? Can we target the nature by how we deal with things, the nature by which we move, the nature by which we apply our knowledge, right? Almost there opening it. It's just almost there. But yeah, anybody has any builds, any questions, let me know. Infinite, you said I like to say that wisdom is not just the application, but also the experience of knowledge. Sure, absolutely. Trial, error, tribulation, experiment, failure, learning. Man, there was a bar that somebody had that was really insightful. I think it was, I forgot his name. I forgot the bar about understanding and failures. All right. When this thing opens, I'm going to go through the plus lesson. All right. I think it's open now. This build here. All right. There were other ideas that I had over time. I haven't really fleshed them out, but that's why this plus lesson, when you get it, I wrote it in 2011. It's called Understanding Volume 1, the transition from work, wisdom, to insight, understanding. Um, and a lot of times, though, infinite, we talk about other words for wisdom or that imply. I want to make it the most active thing that we can think of, so I called it work. Um, and the premise for this, though, that I wrote is the series of lecture notes that reinforce the year's theme. In the 2010s, I had a theme for each year. This was also when I had very regular students in the classroom. So I decided for a theme every year and build on that theme. I dissolved that eventually because students were erratic in their attendance. Um, Again, whoever's there is what develops the class. Whoever's here develops the class, whether it's online or in the classroom, right? So the series of lecture notes are to reinforce the year's theme that is being focused on, understanding. Okay. The prior year, the thematic focus was on the ideal of work. In engaging in particular work, willfully, one will develop an awareness of self. One will see the conflict of the desire for righteousness and the actual reality of one's virtue in real terms. Okay, that means that you have a desire to be righteous or have righteousness, though, but your virtue, the actual things that you have done to develop that, doesn't match up. Um, it begins with build awareness squared. There's another plus lesson I had about studying how one eats, trains, reads, writes, shares. I've gone over that a few times, so many students you may have that. Learning of oneself. One may take note of what they are studying, the justice curriculum, right? And these are all the plus lesson about um, uh, about the different subjects and major subjects as a starting point of what you could study. Now ready to begin working on developing, understanding the work year ended with the justice build. Okay, a set of major concepts to help approach in seeing one's understanding of supreme mathematics, supreme alphabet, the 120 lessons, and even everything else they encounter worthy of study. Okay, we'll take a break there. I see some comments here. Okay. If you said God is a very conflicted word to use in today's age and day and age in society because of how mixed, diluted, and tampered with has been in certain religions has been identified as the name of the creator. Okay. How do I see God versus deity regarding terminology? It's something I've been thinking about lately. All right. Peace of God District 120. Peace of God If Mega. Peace God. Allah School of Mecca YouTube page. I think this. As far as God as a deity, um, it's one of the words that we continue to use. We kind of won't really stop, right? But I think the work was always intended that we are redefining this word. You know, the other words in supreme alphabet and supreme mathematics, they can be confused with the way that they are applied in the world. Power comes to mind immediately, and that's why refinement ended up with it as a supplemental word, right? To give it articulation, to give it direction, right? I think that the word God is one that, for us, I don't know if it has a suitable replacement. It's clunky to just keep saying supreme being. Even when we say supreme being, we mean an actual being, right? So how would that work, right? It's a little awkward. So God ends up being the term that we use, but a lot of times we have to define it. We have to end up defining it to people. So we have to continue to define it. It's really a whole thing. Um, I do think that it can be defined. I think that it needs to be defined. I think it's just the work that we have with it. I don't think there's any other way around it. You know, we have to work with. We are redefining it because the populace sees it as a mysterious being of some said form that controls our reality. That is bigger than everything. Um, so yeah. I definitely, I think it's very conflicted. I think it has the tone of deity. Um, but again, that's the work that we signed up for. To me, flesh it out a little bit, Manny. You said you have to put it into word to discuss in our reality, but in reality, we can't define. Where did you get the idea that God can't be defined? If I said that the original man is God, you're right there. This is very definable. You know, when you say that God is not definable, then you're giving me an orthodox Islamic concept. But we don't deal with that. We don't deal with mystery. It's, by the way, the recent I know West Coast Cam, old '90s rapper that has his own podcast, is in Nation of Islam. He had a whole thing about what the 5%ers believe was challenging. I saw Infmeg on it. I saw Minister Freedom. It went on for too long in that particular night. It was not the night for me to be doing that. But I was interested. Um, but I feel like there's no argument with him. He could say whatever he wants, though, and be wrong. He could be corrected. But for him to say that once he starts delving into his belief of things and that we have to believe, there really is nothing else. Like, we don't have to say that we believe 120 because we don't. You know, that's peace, God. I mean, we don't have to say that we believe 120. We don't. Um, we don't have to argue about that because we don't. Um, and once he has belief, we're already not in that lane, so it's already different. You know, so it's already way different. You know, I mean, there's a reason why Allah memorized 120 and they don't memorize it. We memorize it because we use a piece of God. All right. We memorize it for that particular reason because we don't believe it. We utilize it, we apply it, we see it in situations, and that's the only way. That's really the only way. um, the Tao is very interesting, Manny. The Tao is very interesting because they also have translations like the John C.H. Wu when it says, "How do I know that about the Tao?" And it says this about 2 or 3 times in that translation, in about 3 different aphorisms, sutras. How do I know all about the Tao, right? And the answer is by what is within me. Um, the way they wrote, they were trying to take out the mystery, but it's a different type of dialect. Sometimes that gets lost though with translations, though. That's why with the Tao Te Ching, it depends on what book you're reading. I've read at least 30 translations of the Tao Te Ching. Um, I always end up quoting John C.H. Wu because I find that the most articulate. Um, Even over Thomas Cleary, because Thomas Cleary is usually who I go with everything, with the ancient Chinese text. But in this case, this rare case, John C.H. Wu's overrides that, right? But God is not a mystery. God is taken to be a mystery. So our difficulties in proving that the black man is God, that we are the true and living God, has to do with redefining things for people. And like I said, that I always saw as not a point of confusion, but the necessary point of contention. We have to go and build on this. We have to disagree with this because the populace is the ones that have made God a mysterious being. Right? We are reverting a definition back to its thing. So it makes it different than nearly all the other definitions. Other definitions in supreme mathematics are not changing the word per se. Words like freedom, culture, power, build, but augmenting them. Right? God is different though. It's being changed, bringing back to its original meanings. If you said you would write in the board people's definition of God, explain it in real time, but take it through physics, biology, chemistry, right? You said that's something I always appreciate. Understanding the language the way I do is very important. Explaining context and content and the content of context. Because if we are using the English language to explain the universal truth, I was always taught it was important to get to the meat and bones of words and see how it is defined in the dictionary, how those definitions contradict themselves at times. Yeah, that's right. Um, I used to do this thing called the criteria, and as an assignment, you can all give me back your criteria. Like spend a week on it, and give me a detail of all the criteria that needs to be checked off in this checklist of criteria that needs to take place to define God. Right. So you have a whole checklist. You have well, God, for the very person that isn't studying, is very religious. They would say God has to, if he exists, he has to go fly through walls. He has to be able to make things happen immediately. He can affect individual realities at any moment, right? Like you're watching Highway to Heaven or those old shows with the angel, he gets God's help, boom, you know what I mean? Does some. Um, but really, when we start to refine a little more, right, we would say things like in the criteria, um, he's a master of the language of the universe that he created. Right? Now, what would be the language of the universe? Right? It would be mathematics, right? It would be math, right? He would have he would be composed and have a mastery, composed of the elements and have a mastery of the elements of the entire universe, the creation, said creation, right? And then that would delve us into biochemistry, right? That would delve us into the study of carbon, being the specific elements in question here. Uh, um, so I would make this whole criteria here able. He would be able to reach beyond time and space, right? Time and space would not be constraints, right? But they would be markers of his abilities, right? We talk about Allah being the original man, right? Then that means time. He reaches beyond time and space through the mind and the body, right? Because the body, your body here, his body there, you know what I mean? Everywhere. He reaches beyond time because the black man has continued to exist and continue to share this reality down epigenetically and then in the genetic reality. He reaches beyond the finite in the infinite because he is timeless. He continues to live on. He is finite. He masters the finite realm because he deals with the finite realm in the physical body, right? So these are just some of the criteria that I would write on the board and everything and go through them, you know. But this is a good assignment to make because knowing the criteria can also lead you to the assignments, though, the things that you need to study to add on, right? Um, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Um, I see my little daughter is on her mom's YouTube channel. Peace, peace, my Alma. Alma, how are you? Showing me a million hearts. Let me see if I throw back a heart there. Get these emojis here. Right? Only give me these ugly emojis. What's going on here? Throw her back like a monster thing. Look, I'm gonna give her back some type of monster hand. Right? Oh, there's a funny looking heart there. We'll give you those. Okay. All right. But I know Alma, you've been a good girl, right? We're gonna have fun this weekend when I pick you up tomorrow. Um, right, make sure you go to bed on time. Make sure you read. Always proud of you. Always proud of you. G1, you said Supreme Alphabet has an order. However, you have to formulate or sequence them to equate to infinite combinations of communication channels and frequencies. All right, I love you. And yes, me too. All right. That's right, G1. That's right. Very important. Very important. You know what I mean? Very important. It's also good, though, we don't study any religion, though, but it's also important to know our environment. This knowledge itself is like we're warring with other people in thought. And so it's important to sometimes know a little bit about religions and the history of religions. Like, for example, there's a good history book I'm in the midst of, very long history book. I get the name of it right now. I did a lot of research on which book to really get a good history of Islam. The history of Islam, meaning through the countries that it developed in and how the religion and how it differs from Christianity in that it really comes with a specific way of living, and that's why it's so embedded in the government of those countries. What is the name of this book? It's called Destiny Disrupted: A History of the World Through Islamic Eyes, and it's a very good history. Very interesting history. Let's see how long it is. About 100 pages, 450 in. Not too long. It's long, but not like beastly. Four about 430 pages. You know, it's a good size book. Good size book, right? You're welcome. You're welcome, Amma. But it's important to know the histories of the people, the mentalities of the people that we deal with, um, a little something about the religions, right? Sometimes when you learn about the religions of people, you find out how they are fooled. You find out through the histories of these religions how they may have swayed from certain mentalities. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, if you study a little Buddhism, you should be able to answer why Buddhism was not fat at all and was pretty much starving out there because he didn't want to hurt anything that cause harm. It's gonna cause you a problem, even if you eat like grass. Like, you know what I mean? Like you eat vegetation because are you hurting or so why is Buddha depicted as fat? You know what I'm saying? There's real answers to that. There's real answers to that. You know, in the way that they were teaching, in the mentality of his fullness, right? That they saw in him. So it's good to know about the religions of the people, the spiritualities of the people. Also, see, this is how you could tap in to see what is true that they have been able to adhere to, keep to, um, and all of these things. There's no way around it that if we're going to teach something that is so adverse to society, so against it, then it's important that we know exactly what the society deals with in particularly, and then see the stages of rebellion. People develop different spiritual thought processes in their rebellion. Doesn't go all the way like we do. They still deal with mystery and all that kind of stuff. We're talking about the realms of like, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, and we get those type of things. It's important to know how people think because when we make links with people, we're going to be linking up with the rebels, with the artists, with the deeper thinkers, and they're not all going to be with us. You know what I mean? They're not all going to be down with us. So throughout your history. You're going to also be dealing with a component of people that know about this, but the truth was that they didn't want to deal with it or couldn't deal with it and don't quite deal with it. You'll deal with people that are doing good things, but they strayed away from it, though, and not always for bad reasons per se. Um, we would like to think, right? I would like to, in my mind, I always assume that if someone strays away from this knowledge, though, and doesn't deal with it, though, it's always a wrong reason, right? It's always wrong reason, right? Well, what could be more important than knowing who you are and that there is no mystery and that you are the one responsible for all this? And then now the science of study, the major science of study in your life, though, is figuring out more and more um, why it is that you do everything, how it is that you can create, what are the parameters of creation, how is it that you at this juncture, at this age, whatever age you are, have a hand in creating all of this for all time. You know what I mean? We have all thoughts about how we might be able to preserve it, continue it on. The babies are the greatest. But the more difficult questions is how it came to be, how it is so. These are things to study, to focus on, right? I don't know how to pronounce that. Is it my God? Is it me? My God? Allah, peace. Okay. Um, Never heard a name like that. Um, yeah. So, um, many different ways to approach it. Again, I'm here till 8 o'clock. I'm here for another half hour. So let me know your questions and stuff. Okay. What question? Yeah, that means you too, guys. What questions you might have and stuff like that, and then I'll continue to build.
So I wanted to ask you, are we spiritual?
I think that we have answers to spiritual matters. That's an immediate question. Once we talk about God, the way I will define it that goes with the populace is that once we start speaking about the creator of all things, we have steeped into spiritual matters, and we can call it that we're dealing with spiritual matters. When people say spiritual means is that they are more, it's an inclination to say that they are more sensitive to what though? So if you have somebody that's empathetic to people and they respect people and they help people, they build in the community, they help people that are not their own kin, they help their own people that are their own black people, their own brown people, whatever, right? The original people, they're always in their corner. Um, it is not quite the definition of saying that they are spiritual. You know what I'm saying? So when people say they're spiritual, it means that they want that there is something that they do, even if they cannot name it or will not name it, that they submit to. You see? And so I couldn't really say that we are spiritual. I wouldn't say that. I certainly to begin with, I wouldn't say that I am. I would say that I am spiritual. No, absolutely not. However, people that see the way I live my life though may see it that way, because they have defined spirituality as altruism and love toward people, to teach the youth to focus on that, to be willing to defend them, right? But also to see a humanity in sharing with people. This is a large part of my life, though, so people may see that as a spiritual thing, right? Um, no, but I couldn't, though. That word implies a mystery and a submission to something higher. That isn't the motivation at all behind why I do these things. So I would say it's a bad definition. Although I would understand why people would see my life, they would see it because they would know certain things are aesthetic, like very regimented, the training, the work, the way that I write, the intensity by which I do these things, the way that my diet is, right? They would see a lot of spirituality in it because it is very regimented and for a cause that I know is righteous and only amended when I find things wrong or to be more righteous. So they would certainly see something like that spiritual, but there is nothing that I'm submitting to. You see, there is nothing I'm submitting to, so I couldn't say it's spiritual. There was a moment in time where the person that defines someone else or themselves as spiritual will expect to themselves or what they are observing to submit to something that is higher to them, though it is unnamed. So they're really just trying to break away from the general categories of spiritualities. And so, like us, though, again, a similarity. um, they don't adhere to a set way of doing things, you know. So like there are gods like me, but then there are gods that smoke, there are gods that drink, there are gods that won't drink but they'll smoke, right? So um, that would be false. Like to then see the way I live and say I'm spiritual, and then see one of my other elders or brothers that smokes or some or drinks, to say that they are not spiritual. Um, where does that come off? It just now you're defining me on visions of purity, not necessarily levels of righteousness. You know what I mean? Levels of righteousness, or you are making what you consider spiritual to the person to be more righteous, and you've quantified it. You know, I think there is things that are righteous that have to be done, but I'm very careful in quantifying righteousness. Though, you know, what happens when a man does certain said things? Is he completely righteous? I don't know if that is so. The reason I say that is because the man that never has done anything unrighteous, though, we still would have to say, has he encountered every single um, life decision and or choice in this hell that we live in? Right? Sometimes it's not, though. You know what I mean? He, let's say on the basic levels, he hasn't killed anyone, but has he been in a position where the only way out of a situation, particular situation, was for him to defend himself to the death, right? To the death, and those situations can come up. But what if it never came up? We would say no, he never killed anyone, and that makes him more righteous.
You never had to.
You know, right? So I could say that I've never returned anyone, and that I would never go for that. I would never work toward that in any of the serious fights that I've ever had up to this point. Um, I've had that in mind and had some kind of mercy that I was willing, that I was kicking in. You know, um, but that's not to say that there would be a moment that wouldn't happen, because I never had a very very serious, like we could say, life or death fight with my children around. It changes everything, you know, because if I can defeat a foe and move along carefully, and step away carefully, I always took that choice. That choice may not be the choice, though, if my children are around. I may need to be 100% assured of safety. If there was an attacker upon you, sometimes the only way we have to say would be the only way to stop an attacker from 100% not hurting you would be technically to kill him, right? Unless you were a He-Man, you could just like rip his limbs off, right? Rip his arms from his body and his legs from his body, which mean that he would probably die anyway.
Yeah.
And so,
Still excessive.
yeah, it's the blood loss, right? I mean, he would die, say, but like you know, if it was like one of those things where he like broke both legs, broke arms, he would still be alive, right? So, as I said, it really depends on the morality. You know, people would like to accuse people like, oh, that's the wrong, like they do that. That's the wrong decision. I wouldn't have done that and did this. But have you been in that situation of being offered this much money? You know what I'm saying? You know, like, and it never will come up. My old earth already passed. But if somebody said, listen, Sunez, if you make these pop songs, that you don't like them, but if you make them, you know, we'll give your old earth a whole home, a house, and that you never have to pay for, and riches, you know, for life. This would be a very interesting decision, because I could just, other great musicians that are legends have made bad songs, right? Um, I can name millions of legends that have made pop songs that were bad. Curtis Mayfield's late has about 2 or 3 late '70s albums that are filled with disco, right? But in those most disco-y albums that are really kind of throwaways, like um, there's one of them that's really like all disco, like not what you would want from Curtis Mayfield. But one of those songs actually is the sample for Mary J's "Happy." You know what I mean? And it's the same beat, it's the same exact beat. So if you like Mary's song, right? So it had a gem on it still, you know. So I could always go. Maybe I'll make a great pop song, like a bullshit pop song. Like, I don't know how I would do that. I don't think I'm talented enough to make a good pop song, but especially in a type of pop that I hate. Though, you know what I mean? Like make a trap song or a reggaeton song. I totally fail. But the point being though, with the decision, I would think differently about it, right? Come on, I would have to think that like, yo, well, we'll have your kids thousands of dollars for your children though. I'm like, yo, this will pay for their college. They could start a business. They could do right. Come on. Now that this is different. So now what you decide is righteous though may not be so righteous anymore. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about the decisions you make. Now I'm not justifying all of the shitty music that's out there, right? And I can see it turning that. But what I'm saying is that people have those decisions. Those decisions are real. You know what I mean? Those opportunities are real. You know? So it depends, and a lot of those, let's say for example, those Curtis Mayfield albums, he wasn't making it because of himself. He was making it because he thought people would really like that, and that's the sound that they like. So he wanted to make a great song in that sound, right? He took it as a challenge, But you see how not everything's clean cut. So I think spiritual is based on people's purity definitions, and also the submission to mystery, submission to something mysterious. I don't believe in God, but I do believe in a higher power. I mean, it's the same thing. Same thing. Yeah.
Supreme being.
Right? I don't. I still don't know the difference to this day. That's why I always say that we don't deal. Like I just finished writing. I'm catching up on my letters to prisons, and a young man, and show you how real these things are. For like, if there's any young people, I don't think my daughter's listening anymore, but I'm going to show her the letter because she needs to see this. She's already, you know, 11 years old, so I show her these things. But the the brother wrote for me. He's 30 years old, but he's doing life in prison, right? 30 years old. Right? How old are you guys?
With knowledge.
Wisdom, knowledge, right? I mean, that means that like in his lifespan, he had like just eight more years, and he was gone. You know what I mean? So he's writing to get a knowledge of self. Most people would look at that letter like, "Oh, all right, why do I need to write back? You're locked up. You don't do shit." Right? That's not seeing the humanity of the person. Like his life is not worthwhile because he can't travel anywhere because he's in one place. But that particular place, no matter what else surrounds it, is on the planet Earth, and the planet Earth is in the universe. And every single part, Allah has created every single place and every being. We have self-created ourselves, right? Especially when you get the knowledge of self, right? So now, what would be the worth in him saying that he's spiritual? You see, he went for something more profound. What is the information, the knowledge of myself that has been kept from me, right? So it's very interesting the way that we think of things and the way that we see certain things, our perspective. Um, all right, kids. Let's see. This may be a matter of semantics, but spirit. You're saying you see spirit as intent. I see spirit as intent. I don't think that's a wrong way of seeing it. The root word is the root etymological root of spirit. I forget the original Latin term, but it means energy.
I think the spirit is.
Yeah, and it means energy, like the energy. So it doesn't mean that we could go out in society and use the word that way, because it'll still would be confused. We still, like I said, the best way to keep it simple is don't throw new words to have to redefine. God should be the one that you're redefining. That's enough work on its own. Okay. There are enough problems with words that are already being used that have difficulties, like power. Why do you think refinement is such a big issue? Because the people that argue this most, some of the people that argue this the most, power, refinement, there shouldn't be refinement in it, they're the ones that misuse power all the time. They're power hungry. Um, Power has corrupted them because once you have a knowledge of self, you have a certain power. You have a power over your own decisions. You have a power over others because you have certain information that if you teach them or not, you're in the choice now to be a 10 or a 5%, right? If you got knowledge, you're no longer 85. So now you're in the decision. Is he going to share or is he going to keep for himself? Now you're in the choice of which one you're going to be of those. You put yourself in that bracket, right? So now it's important. Okay? Peace to the God, self-magnetic. Okay? I haven't forgot you, self-magnetic. I'm actually got you and someone else that asked me to do something. And then just more work with King Kamon because he sent me some stuff. But I'm gonna get to that. I'm still finishing up the reel of 2024. That book is really nearly over. I'm just waiting on the cover and adding some extra things in it. Um, but then I'm starting the next books, I'll be able to lay down some vocals and stuff, you know. But um, but again, be very careful with the original definitions of things. They are teaching methods. They are good for pedagogical tools, but they could be detrimental if you start using the word that way, especially if people don't use it that way. You know what I'm saying? Right? That's why I would say we're very clear. Elijah, that's why Elijah was so clear. We don't deal with spirits, spooks, and things like that. None of that kind of stuff. None of that kind of stuff. You know? Right? People talk about spooks and they see things and energy and this and that. They don't even know enough about science to be speaking on whether they saw something that was an energy field or anything else. You know? And a lot of the mysteriousness of reality should be chalked up to the lack of understanding or just the general lack of science not reaching a certain point that it will reach eventually because there's always the possibilities. So something else I always tell you to, okay? Now we have less than 20 minutes, so anybody want to build, anybody want to add on, please do. Please do. You know, I think my daughter is no longer on it though, but just want to tell her that I love her, right? If she didn't hear it already, she's about to have to go to bed soon. So um, I started to go through the understanding protocol. I'm gonna go not protocol, understanding plus lesson. I want to say one thing about the understanding plus lesson is that everybody goes into things with their own understanding. So that means that everybody goes into situations with their own bias, though, right? What you agree with, what you don't, what you like and dislike. Be honest with those things. And then with the knowledge of self, understand that you have understanding that you are going into situations with, right? You're with things, you think about the youth. How do the youth see it? That's our bias, but it's a bias of understanding. It has real understanding to it, but it's a bias though. Whereas other people, they look at things and they don't think about whether it's detrimental to the youth or not. Is this good for people? None of that, right? You go to the store, right? The help, you go to whether it's a bodega or a health food store, right? You have a certain bias of what you know to be healthy and not. So you're looking at ingredients, right? You're looking through them. You're not just like, that looks tasty. Like the front, you're like, that looks tasty. And now you don't just go, that looks tasty right there. It may look tasty to you, but you don't just take it and then run away with it. You're like, now let me see, right? Well, let me see if I can eat this. Right? It's always like that from now on, right? Let me see if I should eat this, could eat this. Right? After you see if you should eat it, you could eat it, then you can go, should I eat it? It's got a lot of sugar. It's got now you know you can't eat it. It's got a little pork and things like that. But like, should I eat it though? Right? Then the next thing, you know what I mean? So the more knowledge you have, the more discerning that you can be. Like when I make my meals, because I understand what the foods I'm eating, I'm like, listen, do I have the amount of right vegetables? Do I have the right complex carbohydrates? Do I have the right amount of protein? Right? Have I balanced my salt? Right? Because aside from that one big meal, right? I don't have any salt in anything else. You know what I mean? So there's almost no salt in the diet except for that one meal, right? So then I gauge it. I count everything. You know what I'm saying? Um, so all of this is really, really important. Okay. G1, you wrote spirit is breath, spirit, Anglo-Norman French. Yeah, spirit is spirari, right? Excellent, excellent. You know what I mean? But see, The breath of life is something that people don't think is endowed and given by humanity to humanity. It is some being above that allows this to take place. You know, we got to be very careful with these words and how, when we use them and how we use them. You know, someone says that they're spiritual. This is a building block. They might be able to get the knowledge easier than someone that says that, I'm a hardcore Christian. Right? You're like, okay, well, go do what you do, right? He's not arguing with that. Like I did a recent interview about hip hop with weeks ago. Weeks ago. This is a long time ago. This is not the recent one with Uncle Nick. I did one with Dr. Balon. And one time we had a discussion. He was telling me about being a 5%er because I had corrected him about something about our nation. Like he said something wrong, and he's a Christian. You know, and he was telling me like, I think some of the things that you guys teach are wrong and this and that. And so listen, whatever you would tell me is wrong is based on your beliefs, and I respect you having your beliefs. You know what I mean? But there's really no argument that we could really have though, because you believe and I don't. So how could we have an argument? You know, there's no way around it though. What are you going to tell me that? I don't think that man is God, because here in the Bible it says the Bible is not the format to prove or disprove whether I see on myself as God. So there's no scripture. That's why we say don't believe 120 lessons, because not even Elijah saying that the black man is God in the knowledge degree, right? In the knowledge degree in the 1 to 10. That is not the final say of why we agree with it. We agreed on it because Allah showed and proved it, and then he told us if you agree with it, you have to show and prove it for yourself. So there might be other parameters of scientific measure that we go through, and we should, that say, listen, I agree with it. So even if we agreed with Elijah, we don't see it only because of Elijah. And that makes it beyond whatever a Nation of Islam member is dealing with. A guy like West Coast Cam, he can believe what Elijah wrote just because, right? Just because he just wrote it though. And for us, that's no good. That's completely impaired. It's completely illogical.
So when you say that the reason why man isn't God is because the Bible says X, Y, and Z, but God didn't write the Bible, right? No mystery God wrote the Bible. Some man, some woman had to do it.
Yeah, and they always get around that. They always get around that because it was given to him. It was ordained to him. It's all Michael Landon. You know what I mean? It's all Michael Landon. Highway to Heaven. You know what I'm saying?
And that's when the whole individual reality, you see something I don't.
Right. Yeah. You know what's funny? My old earth used to love watching Highway to Heaven, right? And I realized I used to think I was on a spiritual path, when I got into college, I was studying Rastafarianism, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to get locks like you guys. It's not gonna work. Even when I had long hair, it was more I was doing it more like in the Chinese way. You know what I mean? Right? And but I was studying all these rebel religions and spiritualities, right? Because certainly Rastafarians are very rebellious and revolutionary spirituality because they use it to fight for their freedom. But so does other Christian formats of Christianity, because in South America, the revolutionaries dealt with Christianity in what was called liberation theology, right? So when you see that term liberation theology, that has nothing to do with like Black Power or like just on a socio-political level, right? Black and brown power. That's not what that means, actually. Liberation theology is the idea that the Christianity that we deal with is not to wait for death to go to heaven, but to make our better reality now. And obviously with the revolutionaries like the Sandinistas and everything like that throughout the histories in Latin America, that's a revolutionary concept because that's not what was taught. You know what I mean? They didn't see it that way. But when we think of all this, though, I respect a person for having their religion. It may give them a lot of fortitude to live a righteous way. You know what I'm saying? To do the right things and things like that. So I can never insult a respectable man's religion, but I can also say that it would be quite fruitless though if we go on an argumentative thing. You know what I'm saying? Because we're not arguing different beliefs. So I'm arguing stuff that is, well, when I start to prove my reality is God, I'm going into quantum mechanics though. You know what I'm saying? I'm going into the physics of reality. I'm going into the logic of the mind and neurology. I'm not dealing with what are you talking about, right? I'm not dealing with, well, it says here in this scripture that I deal with. No, I didn't deal with no scripture. You know? I didn't deal with no scripture. Even 120 only fortifies the way that we put these puzzle pieces of information that is true that most people are not dealing with it in a proper way, you know. So that's a big difference, you know what I mean? Right? John 10 through 34, Psalms 82. I have heard people dismiss those as well, you know. I've heard Christians dismiss it to me, different translation. And now I got to go into all the translations now. Now I have to go, right? Like, now it's really wasting my time because it doesn't matter. I don't believe. You see? You didn't look at they didn't read their scripture and say, this is correct. It's actually correct, like a fact. No, they said it makes sense. It fits what fits them. It fits into their way of life, and that on many levels ends up being a very comforting thing to people. You see? But when I was realizing I was the true and living God, that was a sense of ego, and then once it went past ego, a sense of great discomfort, a thing that seemed almost unprovable and yet fit. You see? So it's in the other end. This is very uncomfortable. How do we prove this? So these are the differences that, you know, can be said. You know what I mean? See, the thing is, it's not G1. It's not that because the spirit, its roots mean breath. It could be dismissed religiously as like, yeah, God gave you the breath. He gave you the breath. You know? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you ever went to the church and heard this stuff, but that's all they talk about, right? God gave the breath of life. You know what I mean? Right?
So I always seen that as knowledge, wisdom, understanding.
Yeah. I definitely could see that. You know?
That doesn't come from nothing, though.
No, nothing comes from nothing. You know? Nothing comes from nothing. And in all the ancient spiritualities that are really ancient, like the Tao, everything that came from everything was always here. You know? That's why you see the Tao, the the Tai Chi symbol, right? When you see the yin and yang symbol, that yang inspires the yin and it continues on. But it was great Wu Ji that begins everything. And you know how they symbolize that circle? Just black, just a black circle. The Wu Ji is just black circle. You know? Yang instigates, yin furthers. Right? Peace, Tyrone. I appreciate those words. Right? So, guys, I'm going to be here for just a few more handful of minutes, okay? So let me know if there's anything you want to build on. Original Man wouldn't even listen to your translations now because you're translating them in the white man's language. I think so. It depends. It depends. It depends.
You all speak it.
It depends, right? Because I've noticed in a lot of the ancient Chinese texts, the more translations that you read, it also depends on the acumen of the translator and how a translator can explain his reasonings behind translation. And when you do that, and also read many translations of a said work, you can see the differences and choices that were being made, even if you don't know the original language. You know, even if you don't know the original language. I think people don't really understand. Like, let's just talk Chinese culture. How many ancient texts they have about Tai Chi, about Qi Kung, about the Tao that haven't even been translated from ancient texts. We're not even talking like current Mandarin.
Yeah.
We're talking about like ancient ways that
learn that at school.
Yeah, that they don't even speak that way themselves. So like the average decently educated Chinese man isn't going to be reading an ancient text in its original form either. You know, just like just like the Bible, no one writes like that anymore. You know, it's not a Middle English, but it's a later Middle English. It's a newer Middle English. You know, so that's also what makes it a difficult book to read, the Bible.
And originally it was in Hebrew.
Well, yeah. You said no means no in all language. The ideas is what's important. The word presents or conveys the idea. Surely, you know. And again, that's why the work of translation is always something that intrigues me. You know, intrigues me. Like I love when a translated text has a little introduction about how they did it. You know, Thomas Clary got me into appreciating that because his books, Flower Ornament Scripture, all these ancient texts that he translated, the Tao Te Ching, the Dhammapada, all of these ancient texts he translated, he gives like a little detail about why and how he translated it, like the what he tried to preserve, what he feels is there, and it gives you a framework. It gives you a framework, even if you read for reading other translations and seeing the worth. You know, so it's definitely a thing. But guys, going back to the beginning, I am definitely fighting and keeping this as positive as possible. Okay, and that's how we're gonna do. We're not gonna do anything else. I dealt with the negativity that I've dealt with um, as best as I could, as honorably as I could, and willingly. 85ers just go back to the 85 world. 10%ers just dissolve into dust, and we continue on. Okay. Again, I'm here every Thursday, definitely from the 7 to 8 hour, and we could build, and we build outside of the classroom as well. Tyrone, you said, God, you are performing your duty every day. Our lesson take on different characteristics that remain the same. If one really is true living out the culture. That's peace, Tyrone. That's peace. Absolutely. You know what I mean? But I always want this to be a positive, very fruitful session. You know, and again, I'm working on it. 1 to 10 plus lesson that is like a study sheet. You know, things that to look for, what's in it, books, specific books to look out for, and to deal with. Just a good primer, a study primer. Okay, I'm making that as we speak. You know, so hopefully I get done soon. All right. But with that said, I'm going to let everybody go. I've been here long enough to build. Most successful tool. It sounds so cliche, right? But it's using everything. The most successful tool is using the tools. You know, I already came here. I knew how to write. I read very well, read intensely. I could articulate myself. I could speak. I continue to develop the set abilities. It's really all it is. Continue to develop the set abilities. You know, it's really what it is. You know. But on that note, I'm going to let everybody go. You all should be reading intensely, writing intensely your own thoughts and ideas. All right, and building out there. All right, peace.